Alright guys, we're on to the next step here. So we got the pulley, the pulley upgraded. So the new hub and the new pulley has been pressed on. It's in the last video. We're now at the point where we're going to start wrapping this up and getting this all installed. So now that I have everything opened up here, what I want to do is, let's have the opportunity, I want to inspect the O-rings that are here on the bricks. Give a visual inspection of O-rings that are here on our coolant manifold. You can see that one here is damaged, so before I install the coolant manifold, I'm going to have to replace those O-rings. I'm going to look inside here where the rotors are at and just see if I can see anything out of the ordinary, any major dirt pieces. Looking at these O-rings, they do look to be in pretty good condition, which I would expect because I imagine this hasn't been removed very much. So also what I want to do is, I don't know if you can see inside here, but there is appears to be some grease on the around the diameter of this hole, so I'm going to go in there and clean that off, clean that out. And then once I do that, I'm going to use the scraper here. So this scraper is just an ordinary scraper you pick up at a hardware store or something. What I do have installed on here though is not a razor, like a steel razor blade you normally get with these kits. This is actually a plastic scraper, so that when we actually start scraping the RTV silicone off of these mating surfaces, we don't have to worry about gouging the surfaces or scratching them or causing any damage. This is just a little bag of these blades that I got off online. So hopefully they'll work out well. So once I get all the silicone scraped off with the scraper, you're going to be doing it for the body and for the snout itself. Working around some of these parts that are up here. So it's according to GM's service manual. According to that manual, you don't have to get off every speck of silicone, but there's not much on here anyways. So I'm just going to go ahead and get as much as I can off there. I'm going to be using some brake clean. So GM recommends using some low VOC cleaner, also GM low VOC cleaner. I'm just going to use standard brake clean on a clean chopper rag to come in here and clean up these surfaces. Make sure to get any residue off of there, whether that's grease residue, some sort of oil residue, or coolant residue. But it's pretty critical to get all those off on the mating surface, so we make sure you have a good bond. And then I got here just your standard Permatex RTV Ultra Black. I'll be using this guy to put onto the surface. I'm going to actually apply that to the snout surface and then put it on. Alright, so let's first clean up with this grease in here. Let's see, I'll probably bring you in here to let you guys see that a little bit better. But get a light here because you probably can't see it. We can see in there's a little bit of a grease ring that goes around that hole, so I'm going to clean that off. Alright, so we're going to do that with some brake clean. Actually, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to grab a clean towel here. So just your average shop towel. I don't like using the red rags because they leave lint behind and other debris, and especially around metallic surfaces. So I'm just going to use, so there's that grease, this blue shop towel here, and try to always keep a clean surface here. Get as much as I can over here. There'll probably be more that's going to come off while it's running, but might as well get what I can. Alright. So I got the majority of that cleaned off there with just using this rag. I'm going to put a little bit of brake clean on it. Try to get in there some more. I'm not trying to get it spotless, but I do want to get the majority of it out. Grab my light here to make sure I'm getting. Okay, so that's not bad. Alright, now we got that done, I'm going to throw that rag off to the side. And take our scraper here. And I'm going to just kind of start working on the end surfaces first. You can see that comes off pretty easily with the scraper. So my main focus right now is just to get the bulk of the silicon off of here. You can see where they squeeze it together, it spilled over into some of the inside orifices. Alright, now I'm going to start working on these outside surfaces. See how easy this just comes off. What's nice about using this plastic blade is I don't have to worry about putting any gouges into the body of the supercharger. And I also want to be pretty conscientious and careful that none of the debris get inside the chamber there. Majority of the silicon off of the body here. Just going to take another clean rag. Get some brake clean on here. Just go through here and wipe up some of these surfaces. Since it's starting to wear out on the other one, just use this by hand to go through here and clean up any of the remaining silicon. Clean off any flakes that might have dropped inside. Check on my bolt holes. Alright, last thing I'm going to do is just take another clean rag and wipe it down pretty good. Everything else is looking alright. Make sure I don't have any cruft. Side here, especially in the ports for this brick. Really don't want any silicone getting in those guys. So I just want to basically keep cleaning this, brake clean until my rag is no longer got any dirt on it. Make sure these surfaces are all nice and clean. So you can see my rag is starting to leave a little bit of fibers behind, so what I usually like to do is take some brake clean, get my gloves all nice and clean, and then just come in here and wipe any of that those fibers off with my rubber gloves, making sure they're clean rubber gloves. Just don't want to introduce any foreign objects into this, either the air system or the cooling system, because that could cause issues. And then we'll just take one last look here. Yeah, right in there. Looks better. Okay. Alright, so I think for the most part we got these surfaces clean. So it's not perfect, so I'm not trying to get all the way to a polish. Trying to get every speck of silicone off of there, but really want to get any of the loose ones off there, because we don't want those loose ones as I'm installing the snout back on to free up and lodge itself inside either the coolant ports or inside this air port will get picked up by the supercharger. So I'm going to make sure it's lint free as best as I can. Got the mating surface all clean. I did leave some of the gasket behind, but that's okay. So what we're going to focus now on is the actual snout. So basically just going to do the same thing. So our razor blade. So just focusing on big pieces here. Get this leftover material. This just got brake clean on it. I don't have anything special here, just got brake clean on the clean rag and just getting any leftover. Alright, so we're definitely clean now. So I'm not going to want to touch this with anything oily and greasy, obviously. We definitely want to make sure that this brake clean fully evaporates. You know, at least maybe give it a minute or so, because as you can see, it's very counteractive to what silicone gasket's for. So if it's not going to be completely dry, you're going to run into issues with it not setting properly, diluting your gasket, your silicone with the brake clean. So while that's drying, I'm just going to make sure I don't have any foreign particles anywhere, because we don't want anything to be falling into the coolant ports or intake port. Okay. So now we're going to be getting ready for our silicon gasket, ultra black. And I'm going to do something a little bit different. I think 90% of the time when you see people using silicon, they always do the directions or directions they see in other areas, and that's putting a bead. I hate beads. I hate beads because, number one, they're very inconsistent. You know, these guys usually give you, Permatex will give you directions on just a generic bead size. I think it's like 6 millimeters or something. You know, GM, other manufacturers are going to have their own particular bead size depending on what the application's for. It's messy. You know, you can always apply too much. You can always apply too little. Over the years, I have done things a little bit differently. That's been pretty successful for me, and I'm going to continue to do that in this process. So instead of actually worrying about a particular bead size, the method that I've been using over the years has been just to, obviously with clean hands or whatever, apply just a little bit of material, a little bit of the gasket, silicon gasket material on the surface and spread a very thin film over the area that I'm working with. So that's what we're going to do here. We're just going to take a very small piece and I'm going to just do it to the snout mating surface here. But really I'm just going to not really worry about a bead size and just worry about the coverage. So using my finger here, I'm going to take a little bit at a time and just kind of smear it over. Make sure I'm getting around my bolt holes. And I'm not, it's not a lot. Definitely don't need a lot of this stuff. Just want a very thin film. You're really just after coverage at this point. And you want to work kind of fast because you don't want this stuff to start scaling over on you. I imagine there's going to be a lot of people there that don't like this method, but it's always worked for me and haven't had any issues. So. And I don't have to futz with bead diameters and going around inside, outside of bolt holes to make sure it doesn't cause issues. Squeeze out. So I'm just putting a very small bead or a very small diameter of this on my finger and just working with it. Again, that's just the way I do it. However you're comfortable doing it, that's your cup of cheese or your cup of tea. I'm just trying to cover all the surfaces. You definitely want to make sure it's at least 64 degrees because this is our room temperature vulcanization. And you do not want it to be too cold. You're going to be at temperature when you're putting this on. It's not going to work for you as effective. Sorry for having to get in front of the camera here, but definitely want to make sure I'm getting all this covered. Alright, let's just grab this rag, this leftover, and I'm just going to go the insides here. So that's what we got going on. Just want to wipe the excess off of this bearing, or bearing with the shaft here. Alright, so before this stuff starts to really get solidified, I'm going to go ahead and throw this back on. I'm going to have to orient this power coupler, or sorry, the coupler here. Okay, let's see if we got it on there. Now I'm gonna take my bolts from when we took it apart and start putting it back into place. As you can see, we don't have very much of the silicon squeezing out, so not much will do a clean up there. According to Permatex, they recommend you wait an hour after hand tightening these, and then come back and torque them down. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to tighten it down to 89 inch-pounds, and then we'll be all set. So that should be all for this. The only thing left is just putting the bypass valve back on and putting the replacing the gaskets on that coolant manifold. Alright guys, so we've let the Permatex RTV silicon sit here for a little bit. What I'm going to go ahead and do is start. So this is in inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. Very conscientious of that because things will break. So I'm just going to inch-pound torque wrench here, and we're going to start going in a pattern to torque these things up. Get all those torqued down. Flip this guy back over. And we can put in our wonderful black bolt here. Okay, so now we got all of our snout bolts torqued down to 89 inch-pounds, including the one inside that throttle body port. So what we're going to do now is put our bypass valve back on. This guy is really simple to put on. Basically start off on this side, spin it around. Making sure that it's the panel's right. believe that was a 10 again. This is also 8 to 9 inch-pounds. Okay, so that's everything. The only thing left we got to do is put on the intake manifold, or the coolant manifold, but as I mentioned earlier, I need a weight on that because these gaskets, or sorry, these O-rings are no longer good, so I'm gonna have to order a new set of O-rings, and once we get those in, I can just plop it on and put it on, and put it on here. Installing the coolant manifold is pretty easy, as you saw in the removal process. So, and those are also 8 to 9 inch-pounds on these 4. But I'm gonna call this finished, and thanks for joining me, and we'll keep on going on to the next process.